Like the heroes of D-Day, he also stormed the beach after Gavin Newsom shut it down. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. No choice but get on. The mandate to get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for telling a friend. We love that about you, right, Gina Grad?
That's right.
Handball, Brian. Fuck it, I hate this country.
Oh, dear.
All right. Well, lots of stuff to get into.
Look at those pudgy little fingers.
Yeah, my hand is swollen.
Yeah.
That'll
that's
happen
for sure. Yeah, I got my hand
Let me
sock
see.
on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of stitches.
Put back together like Frankenstein.
Yeah, it looks like a henna tattoo gone wrong.
Yeah, it's an exceptionally ugly surgery because they zigzag their lines. They don't go
Looks like a
straight
voodoo doll.
with them. But yeah, I think I'll be all right. But yeah, should try to get the swelling down a little. I'm starting my audio book, which later on today, which brings me back to just being the worst student in the world and whatever vestiges of that feeling of being in the 9th grade and this thing's due and you got to do this and it's 300 pages and the only thing that really gets me through it is knowing that I did 5 of these things. And
you know it can be done.
Yeah, and we get to do them with Dawson. I get to do them here and sort of at our own pace, although it's not totally your own pace because you got to get through 300 pages in X amount of time. The first book I did, the first audio book I did, they just did the studio, and there's a lot of audio studios. You had to do that, right?
I did.
And
thankfully, there's one close to my house, but still had to go.
They just booked 2 days. And
mine was 5.
Basically, then maybe they booked 3. I felt like they just
Adam's a faster reader than
booked
me.
a couple long days. I really couldn't read out loud, especially back then. Even my own words were difficult. But
even you, the loquacious wordsmith who talks all day, every day, did you get the tired throat? My throat was shot after a couple days. I had to get the throat coat tea, which Dawson must know about, but it was news to me.
Big in the porn industry, too.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't remember that part. I remember going off script a lot because, the name of this book is Everything Reminds Me of Something, and that was the problem.
It's in the title.
I would start reading my own words, and then something would remind me of something, and then I'd have to do like a sidebar. But I think people generally enjoyed that because then it meant the audio book was quite a bit different than the textbook. Yes.
When the bunch of video games and shit I've done, you know what? A lot of times they'll leave in the studio.
The voiceover stuff.
Yes, exactly. They'll leave a green apple in the studio because if your mouth starts to get dry, you get kind of a clicking sound in the back of your throat, and you have to have like a little bite of something tart to cleanse that part of it. Has anyone ever told you that before?
No.
It's a thing.
I believe you.
It's weird, but it's a thing.
I also, speaking of weird memories, I was at the shop over the weekend. And my favorite pastime, if I have any time, is go to the shop, put on the 80s channel on the XM. No, it wasn't on that. It's on whatever music subscription
Wherever you get
there
piped
is.
in.
Yeah, just pipe in the 80s channel, crack a beer, and just walk around and stare at old cars. And
you'll complain about the songs.
Yeah. I did complain about
that's number one. Don't bury the lead.
Too many Devo songs. But anyway, I was doing that, and I happened upon a picture that I hung up on the wall years ago, and I brought it up, but it's been a while. But it's coming off of my birthday.
What?
So I just had my birthday, and I remember I got a gift from a friend of ours named Janie, who was, I think, maybe the girlfriend, on-again, off-again girlfriend of one of my roommates, but she was just a friend. And she presented me with a gift for my 21st birthday. And we were talking about with the gifts the other week that, novelty gifts were no fun.
Yeah,
and I was also I came from a family where I just wanted cash.
Sure.
We stopped doing gifts a long time ago. I wanted $10 from my stepdad, $10 from my grandparents, $20 from my dad, and $20 from my mom. I think it's how it broke down.
I'm sorry. Your mom cobbled together $20 and freely gave it to you?
I recall that's what I recall the breakdown was. And
It
then
can only be spent on certain things, not cigarettes, not lottery tickets.
Brown sugar.
I would get the money together, and then I would go out and get a bike part or two that I wanted, like a BMX bike part. So I didn't want, you could have bought a whole shitty bike, like a whole Huffy for that price, but I wasn't interested in a Huffy. I wanted a cool bike. So I would buy some Redline forks or some Moto Mag rims, but you could only get one or the other.
Oh.
You couldn't get a set of Moto Mags and the Redlines. You'd have to figure that one out maybe when Christmas came around. But Janie made me this, I guess, found some cartoonist who actually drew me a picture of my life at age 21. And I initially looked at it, and she had money. Her family had money. Her dad had like 53 McDonald's or something.
Oh, boy.
Nice.
And she lived in Beverly Hills. And one of the greatest things ever is they were a member of a country club, like in Encino. And maybe twice a year, Janie's got a pen. And we would, she'd take us to the buffet at the country club, and we would just go berserk. You know, they had a waffle stand.
Encino?
Yeah.
Huh?
And we would go golf club somewhere in Encino. And we would just go berserk there. And then she would just sign at the end. And it was the greatest. It'd be the greatest Sunday of our lives.
But bringing in a pack of wild animals.
Oh, my God. The amount we would eat. But she made me had this cartoon commissioned, and it said, Happy 21st Adam. And then there's a whole bunch of little vignettes. Now, the three, there's a main picture at the bottom. That's me, Chris, and Donnie, who are all living together in a one-bedroom apartment. And that was the bottom one. And then above it, there's 4 and 20 pies.
Which doesn't exist
anymore.
Now it's like a pool supplies place.
Yeah, that's right. But we used to go, that would be the big treat on a Sunday, go to 4 and 20 pies.
Can we zoom in a little bit on this?
Have ourselves some breakfast. And then there's another one of her tickling me on the sofa, which is, I was always a sucker for a woman dragging her nails down me. Not in an aggressive way, but just that soft touch nail thing. Janie's got a nail. And then there's
Janie's got a thumb.
There's a bubble of me as a carpenter working on a house.
It's quite a tableau.
Yeah, there's a well, I don't know if we can zoom in on it, Emmy, or not.
You just take a smaller screenshot and put that back.
I figure we could figure it out.
Is one of them, I'm sorry, are you like on a stripper stage?
No,
what is that?
I am.
Are you doing stand-up or open mic or something?
No, I am standing in front of a door in the upper right. And there's a throng of people outside, and the caption reads, "Everybody out." Which is, I would have to kick people out of our apartment.
That's when the party's over.
Constantly. It was a constant fight because I had to get up at 6:15 to do carpentry. My roommates were looser with their schedule.
Late sleepers.
And they like to entertain. And they like the ladies.
Sure.
And they would show up. And at some point, it'd be Sunday night, it'd be 1 a.m., and they'd all be ripping bong loads and rolling around on the floor. And then I would get up. That's where the Sunday morning when I would have to come into the living room and step over the carcasses of the remains of the night before. That's when the battle cry, clean or leave, came in, because I would just go, look, you can either get up and leave, or you can get up and start cleaning, but you can't just flop here.
I wonder which one they chose usually.
They took umbrage, some of the ladies, when I woke them up with my foot. People don't like to be awoken with a
Jostled.
foot. Yeah, like jostled, but I would wake them with my foot. And then most of them would get pissed and leave. And then they would that's where I earned the nickname Walt, as in Grandpa Walton, because I would come out and go, Jesus Christ, it's 1 a.m. I got to get up. Okay, Walt.
I need more than 5 hours of sleep, Grandpa.
Right. So we all lived in this little dinky 1-bedroom apartment. But
the bubble below has you at a pool, which doesn't feel right.
Well, they would break into pools often.
Janie lived in a huge manor in Beverly Hills. And just like the country club, once, 3 times a year, she'd invite everyone over to a pool party. And it was like, I'd never seen a sub-zero refrigerator. Like, look at this huge refrigerator, and there's an island in the kitchen, and you open the refrigerator, it's filled with food, and then it would be out to the pool, and it was like, oh my God, yeah, it was this huge Beverly Hills house.
How did you get Janie to slum it with you guys?
And what's Janie up to? We gotta catch up with Janie.
I think Janie, you can look it up, Emmy.
Janie McDonald.
Jamie? No. Better.
Janie McCheese.
Better. Maybe even for the dad that had like 53 McDonald's franchises. Janie LaPatty.
Not bad.
Stop it. That isn't real.
She's born into this shit.
And I think she went on to start like a clothing line, like maybe even Juicy.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I don't know if she was the founder of it or just an early adopter, but she went on. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in a long time. We were like, my friends were poor, but they were like good looking and charismatic, and people liked hanging out with them. And it wasn't a scene like is depicted in Pretty in Pink, where it's like, hey, she's from the wrong side of the tracks, or like he's from the wrong. You stay
Aren't
away.
You gonna change before the party?
No, my roommates were good-looking, charismatic guys. The lady loved them. Ladies loved them, and they were perfectly willing to come down from their parents' big houses in the hills and come do shit in our apartment that they couldn't do in their house.
Sure,
but also had things like a Gelson's charge card. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that existed. Apparently, if we're talking about the same LaPatty, she runs a very successful PR firm.
Yeah, she served as VP of Public Relations for Juicy Couture.
Wow.
And she made the top 40 marketers under 40.
Oh, shit.
So says Ad Age magazine. Oh, yeah, once in a blue moon, I would come home and the refrigerator would be filled with fresh berries and name brand goods. And my buddy Chris got his girlfriend who had the charge card to go to Gelson's and just do $110 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
And those were some salad days.
Literally.
It's also when you could,
salad bar.
You could appreciate things like going to a buffet was huge. Good. Going to someone had a swimming pool, that was huge. A fridge full of good stuff was it was a big deal. And because we had this weird combination of these kind of rough and tumble kind of poor valley guys whose parents were all apartment dwellers, but they were kind of good stock. They were like athletic, strong, kind of blue collar kind of guys. And then there are a bunch of damsels they lived up in the hills. But their choice of guys were sort of nebbishy Jewish guys from Hebrew Heights, and they wanted the strapping dudes from the valley.
You could say white.
And that's why you'd see my friend Chris driving around a Rabbit convertible. You know what I mean? And where'd you get that car? It's like, my girlfriend let me, and then also the material stuff didn't mean anything to them.
Right.
We were fighting over it all the time. They were like, yeah, this is how I grew up. Like, I got this car when I was 16 and you want to drive it? Go ahead.
Yeah.
We were like, get away from that. That's mine.
Right.
Don't eat that.
Prisoners.
Yeah, we were struggling the whole time. They were like, yeah, go to the Gelson's, charge $110. I don't know who pays it. I swipe the card. My dad doesn't probably pay attention, you know.
Yeah, he's not going to notice.
He's not
Yeah, $100 charge to Gelson's is going to jump out of the monthly bill.
No, he got her a charge card. I mean, that's...
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And then yeah, and it would be the same with the golf club, you know, buffet or whatever. I don't know. They just paid their dues, or they had an accountant that did it or whatever. No one ever raised. And they never, the girls and or the rich guys, although it was mainly girls, they never said anything like, we can't go over $100 or only 5 of you can come to the golf club. There didn't seem to be any rules or gravity in their world. They were just, they had money. They didn't think twice about it. I got a house, got a big pool in it, got a fridge full, come over, hang out.
Probably got automatically debited, most likely.
What's that?
Yeah, probably got automatically debited, most likely.
Yeah.
They didn't even notice.
No,
What's $500 to 53
Right.
McDonald's owner?
Right. Now, I was, you know, just a few years earlier at the supermarket while my mom was arguing with the person about buying cat food with food stamps, and they were telling you can't buy cat food with your food stamps. And so that's how I was calibrated. I wasn't calibrated for the just supermarket sweepstakes. But yeah, now it was a good time, but not for me. And the reason I wasn't having a good time is, A, there was no air conditioning, and I was always hot all the time. And then, B, I kept looking down the road going, what's the future hold? What is the... I mean, maybe we marry one of these people with a Gelson's card, but it doesn't seem like
That's the dowry.
Doesn't seem like a sound financial plan. I was like, how are we going to get a credit card and insurance and make mortgage payments? And it all seemed like doom and gloom to me.
Yeah.
Insurmountable. And I just would sit there, and everyone else would go like, have a bong load, you know, enjoy yourself. But I was
Here's Grandpa Walt again.
Yep.
I was talking to Dr. Drew about it earlier, which is the problem that I think most people have is, we always talk about that thing where they go, can a young person see another person that looks like them doing something they would like to do? So you go, you know, I never saw a black stand-up comedian. Then I saw Richard Pryor, and now young Chris Rock went, I could do that, you know, because you saw somebody who looked like you,
Right.
or came from where you came from. And there's certainly a degree of that is definitely a thing, and it has been a thing. Now it's, you know, we had a black two-term president, we have a black, you know, vice president. Everyone is something. Everyone's gay. You know, everyone's whatever. You just look around. You look around. You
find representation.
Female, black, Hispanic, whatever. You find some version who's successful, and you can go ahead and do that or not. But don't blame it on society anymore.
Right.
There's plenty of examples of it. But it was more. The more insidious part, and we've talked about it before, is you not thinking, not that the person doesn't look like you. So the Brady Bunch looked like me when I was, you know, 10. I could have been one of the Brady boys. That's what I looked
stole
like.
your haircut.
Really could have been, actually.
White guys with bad hair, you know, could have done that, who couldn't act. I could have done that. It was more like, they're going to Hawaii. And I was like, who? Go? How? What is this? Oh, it's TV. Come on.
Sweeps week.
Or just like you'd see the commercial and the guy put the credit card down and the maitre d' would be impressed. Or, you know.
Right away, sir.
Yeah. Or
Diners Club.
He'd take a 20 and tuck it into the maitre d's pocket. I'm like, who's this? What's this money? You know, what are these? I'd watched a Love Boat, and it's like the guy's coming into dinner. He's wearing a tuxedo.
Right.
Where did he get a tuxedo?
Where would one even procure a tuxedo?
Gave him that tuxedo? Yeah. Why? Yes. Did he rent it? But if he rented the tuxedo, he's on a cruise. That's got to cost millions, you know. And,
Millions.
And I was like, I would go with Love Boat and be like, where Where does that luggage come from? He's got luggage.
It matches.
It's not,
It all matches.
It's not using a pillowcase or hefty bag. It's not slung over his shoulder like
A bindle stick.
Well, the one that blew my mind for luggage was like, he just loves it with that guy.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's gone. It's good as gone.
Yes.
right. Everything from a credit card to hailing a cab to going into a fancy restaurant, anything that had to do with travel was always like mind numbing to me. And so it wasn't, now these were all white people doing this. So it wasn't, it didn't come down to, and there were males.
Sure.
So it was all predominantly white males. So I wasn't like, I could check those two boxes, but really, this isn't me.
Yeah.
This isn't us. These aren't the Carollas. We'll never do this. This isn't something we could ever do. And that's the chasm.
It was a class.
Yeah.
That's the chasm. And I wish it is a class thing, but you don't even think of it that way.
No,
it's just
this
like
is where you are.
We'll never go to Hawaii. No one will ever pull down a credit card. We're not going to a luau. We're not going to have family Brady meetings.
Belong into a conch shell.
Yeah.
I
Go to
would,
the den.
One of my biggest
Retire to the den.
one of my biggest things is it had a lot to do with nighttime attire. At some point, Tiger would bring a skunk into the house at 2 a.m, and all the Bradys would file down into the living room into the wee hours. And they all had their own slippers, their own bathrobe, and they're wearing the bathrobe over the top and bottom
Yeah.
pajamas.
Yeah, matching pajamas.
Button-up pajamas.
I would sleep in my underwear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With the single sheet. Like just seeing like how people would answer the door in the middle of the night.
In an outfit.
In an outfit. The woman had her,
carefully.
yes, on the Love Boat. They have a smoking jacket, that they would, with their initials embroidered into
and
it.
And the women, the frilly schmata that goes over the frilly nightgown. So it goes every direction.
You just covered a memory. I remember seeing like monogrammed things, shirts or jackets or whatever, and thinking, they must make every combination of letter because how else would you get it on there?
I would love that, the monogram store. But also, what about just changing for dinner? Oh, you're in your play clothes. Go change for dinner.
Yeah, or getting dressed after you've been rocked out of your sleep and putting your slippers.
Yeah.
All the Brady kids had their own slippers and their own bathrobe.
Yeah.
Even Mr. Rogers, when he got home, he changed into a cardigan and other shoes.
A comfortable
what are you
cardigan.
doing?
Yes.
Right. And so that was the real chasm.
Right.
I was like,
That I see.
now, if you're Janie LaPatty, you just go, yeah, this is what you do. You just
What else would you wear?
you do stuff.
Yeah.
This is a house coat. I'm not going to wear it outside.
It's a frock.
Yeah, my first bathrobe, and there's a picture of it, Emmy. I'm standing by the motorcycle, but my first bathrobe was given to me by somebody when I was like 21, but it had no
You're a man
sash.
now.
So it was way too small, and I had to, if I did wear it, I had to walk around holding, like I had a stomach ache.
Sure.
Because otherwise it would just
No safety pin?
flap open.
Defeats the purpose.
Yeah. Now, I don't know why bathrobe was such a, like a bridge too far, but it was, and slippers.
Wow.
And it's also kind of a quiet reminder, which is we're not comfortable.
You're holding it close.
Yes.
It's funny how you have to hold it closed, but also it is 3 sizes too small for you easily.
Yeah. But what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Somebody's giving you a robe.
Someone gave me a bathrobe. All right, let me tell you about Simply Safe. Amy's a chronic sleepwalker who lives near a 4-lane highway. A few months ago, she sleepwalked right out the front door, but the Simply Safe entry sensor on her front door triggered the 95 decibel siren and siren, and it woke her up before she wandered out in the street. Amy says Simply Safe saved her life, and I agree. This is a good company with a great product, backed by the best 24/7 professional monitoring in the business. Less than $1 a day, no long-term contract, and you can try it out 60 days, risk-free, to see if you like it. Batteries last up to 10 years, peel and stick. You make the custom system you want for your home. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/Adam. Go there today for free indoor security camera plus 20% off interactive monitoring. That is simplysafe.com/Adam. All right, we'll take a quick break, come back with the news right after this.
Well, Michael Avenatti, he comes up every once in a while, and just want to make sure we all know where he's at, or at least where he's headed. Attorney Michael Avenatti, who represented adult film star Stormy Daniels, was sentenced to 4 years in prison after being found guilty of stealing roughly $300,000 of Daniels' book advance. But that's not all. 30 months of the 48-month sentence will be served concurrently with a 2.5-year sentence from a separate case where he tried to extort $25 million from Nike. And as you probably recall, he rose to fame when he represented Daniels in a lawsuit to invalidate the non-disclosure agreement after she received a $130,000 hush payment linked to an alleged 2006 affair with President Donald Trump.
He's a poster child for us as a society, which is look at that guy's jawline. You know he knows what he's doing. Look at him. Look at him.
He's honest and he means business.
That was where we're at. And then 2, hating Trump doesn't make your ideas good. It just means you hate Trump. The media went nuts for him, and all the retards from The View went nuts because they were like, look at that guy's jawline, and he hates Trump. He must be a hero.
Yep.
And it's like, no, you could have a good jawline and you could hate Trump and you could still be bad yourself.
Do you remember what I think it was Maxine Waters said when she, in her many speeches about taking down Trump? I believe she said something to the effect of, and if we can't do it, then we're going to have Stormy do it for us. And the crowd went wild.
Right. She's a porn star. He's a creepy lawyer.
Oh.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that would solve the Trump problem, having a porn star and a creepy lawyer in charge.
Although in a way it's poetic and makes sense.
I know. It's also just so funny, like how as a society we can snap a U-turn and just get right on. Like nobody vetted him. No one really knew where he's from or what he did. It's just like, look at that guy. And I have said, in a world where we talk about all the different things, personal momentum. That guy had more personal momentum than any human being I've ever met, and we are so insanely attracted to personal momentum. We think we like modesty. We don't.
No.
We like self-assured, cocky, personal momentum, and that guy just hit the ground running with all the momentum you could have personally.
Joe Namath is still living off personal momentum from 1967.
Well, that's still not all with him because he faces another trial next month.
It's also the name of an arthritis cream he's plugging on Fox. Okay. Personal momentum.
I didn't realize that.
I took a beating in the NFL over 13 years. Personal momentum has helped me. Yes.
Well, he's accused of stealing $10 million from 5 other clients, and he's pleaded not guilty of that. So he's not even done being tried.
Yeah. Well, it turned out he wasn't virtuous.
Oh.
This is a setback for bald men. I'm going to be honest. This is a dark day. We've had better days, but we're going to regroup and come back stronger.
By the way, I'm glad you said that, Brian, because I am so goddamn sick of hearing about how this Depp Heard trial has set back the Me Too movement. I could fucking puke. I don't get it. I have heard every hot take on this all weekend. I understand that, the only point taken from it is, okay, so some women who, quote, don't have the receipts, don't have the medical records because they didn't seek help or whatever, they're going to be afraid to, accuse somebody or go to court or whatever because they're going to be sued for being called a liar, and now it's like insult to injury. I get that. But I don't get it. Like, as a woman, and say I'm part of the Me Too movement, doesn't it give us huge credibility to essentially police our own? Doesn't that make you understand more that, like, women in general are coming from a fairly sincere place?
I think we oversimplify everything, and it's kind of a narcissism and a condescension at the same time. Like, when we do these, like when we say, these people scared of people who look different than them. It's like, nobody thinks that way. You couldn't get along. Everyone looks different. Shut the fuck up. Now but you're saying, I'm up on Mount Pius. We do way too much, like the little people, the poor people who can't, whatever.
We don't know how to get an ID.
Yeah, they're individuals.
Yeah.
They have their life and their life experiences. If they have a legitimate case, be it Me Too or racism or whatever have you, they shall bring it forth.
Right. And then
they don't need you to pontificate on what they're doing. Like this thing is like they're not capable of. Yes, they are. They will. They have.
Yes. And then the other side of this coin, of course, I see some meme because I guess, now it's all about Evan Rachel Wood and Marilyn Manson. They're getting because he may be headed toward the defamation case situation. And Johnny Depp and Marilyn Manson are apparently friends. And I saw a meme that literally is a picture of Heard with a slash through her and then a picture of Evan Rachel Wood that says one bitch down, one bitch to go. So I think on each side, everybody is just fucking losing their minds.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a version of, we started with these lyrics and these satanic rock and roll songs are getting kids to, and then it's like these
Marilyn Manson.
These violent video games and the internet is forcing people to. We have a little more free will than the pundits would think,
like the satanic panic.
Yeah, but they sort of just look over the horizon and they just see throngs of sheep. That's kind of us, and then this music's going to get those sheep, and it's like those sheep have jobs and they went to high schools and they're married and they are religious or they're not, and they have likes and dislikes. They're not just the herd, the sheep. It's just it's an elitist approach to everything, and then we need to protect these people. We need to look after them.
And you're absolutely right. And the funny thing about that, it just put this image in my head. It's like if just the rando person on Twitter, the rest of us, we're the sheep, but we jump up real quick to say, I'm not a sheep, I'm talking about all you guys. And the other sheep, no, you're the sheep. So yeah, it's like we're all morons.
I think the system works pretty well if you have a legitimate case. There's certainly more than one lawyer out there who are willing to represent you.
Weinstein's going to die in prison in California, by the way.
Right. And then they can be the competent ones.
Right.
You don't have to be. You can just be the one who brings the case. They can vet it, and then we'll just go case by case.
Indeed. Let's talk about Elon Musk, but not Twitter. He is over the idea of workers working from home, and he has put his foot down.
I love this guy.
Yep. Last week, he said, basically for Tesla and SpaceX, he sent an email to the staff at both companies telling them that they must put in 40 hours a week in the office. In an email to the Tesla employees that was posted online, he wrote, if you don't show up, we will assume that you have resigned. The internal email was confirmed as authentic by a Tesla employee. Musk added in the email, the more senior you are, the more visible must be your presence. There are, of course, companies that don't require this, but when was the last time they shipped a great new product? A similar email was sent out to Tesla and said remote work is no longer acceptable. And this has been, retweeted and authenticated. And he said, in office, please.
Yeah, he made he made some statement where he said, if you don't like it, pretend to work somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which is funny. But he also brought up a good point. I don't know if he brought up or somebody did, but somebody's got to build Teslas. And they need a floor and a factory. Right. And there's a lot of people there's so many people involved with the fabrication of the parts and then the trucking and the shipping and the assembly and all that. And none of those people have an option to stay home.
Well, yeah, we couldn't possibly be talking about them.
No, we're not. But I think what he's saying is I have a floor of people by the thousands who are here every single day working. Just because you went to college doesn't mean you don't have to come in too. Huh? So I think that's where he's at. But he's also turning into an angry old man, which I like.
Yelling at clouds.
I love that about
cranky.
him.
I truly don't know this. I'm not being snarky. I wonder how much face time he puts in at the company, at either company.
I have no idea. I went to SpaceX.
Was he there?
No, was not there. I do, I feel like he felt like he needed to pretend to be a good guy for a long period of time. And now he's become like when Hulk Hogan went over
Hollywood
the dark
Hogan.
side. He turned Hollywood.
Yeah, the black beard.
Yeah, I just think he's leaning into it now. He just is embracing his dark Hulk Hogan side.
Well, and as Brian pointed out before, I think the tipping point was when he called that guy a pedophile, when they were all trying to save the children in the cave.
Well, yeah.
Because that was shocking at the time, for him to say something like that.
But he ended up winning that lawsuit, right?
Was the guy
No
pedophile?
idea.
He didn't. Somebody sued him, and it didn't work. So I don't know.
But
we can look into it.
This was all about like the sainted effort to save these children. I have a way. And then all of a sudden he's like name calling, and we were like, Elon?
Yeah, I don't know what he knew about that situation or that guy's personal background, but there was something, and I think the guy sued. Emmy, you can look it up, but I feel like it got dismissed or thrown out or something. So maybe there was some nuggets of truth in there.
Well, let's talk about another kind of work week. So across the pond, thousands of UK workers are starting a 4-day work week from Monday with no cut to their pay in the largest trial of its kind. This is literally like a nationwide experiment. So the pilot will last 6 months. It involves 3,300 workers in 70 companies, ranging from everything, fish and chip restaurants, financial services, everything in between. So during the program, workers receive 100% of their pay for working 80% of the week in exchange for maintaining 100% of their productivity. And this,
Well, it's not totally new, but when my stepdad and when he worked for Lockheed, when he worked for Skunk Works, if you guys recall from the Top Gun movie, Maverick, when he was flying his experimental plane, they went up to the tail fin and there was a skunk on there. Do you remember that?
I don't, but now I'm excited.
Emmy will find it somewhere. There was a skunk, which was the mascot logo for the Skunk Works.
Was it an acronym?
I don't think it was. The guy who started it was named Kelly Johnson, and
Jeff Skunk Baxter.
They were out here in Burbank, and even at the point where he was getting out of control, and he showed his hand like on the yoke, there was a little miniature skunk on there too, which was suggesting that this was a Lockheed Skunk Works aircraft.
Do you want to hear what it says? The first thing I pulled up, this is from LockheedMartin.com, so I assume it's real. An engineer named Irv Culver was a fan of the comic strip Lil Abner. And there was a running joke about a mysterious and malodorous, I imagine stinky, place deep in the forest called Skunk Works, where a strong beverage was brewed from skunks, old shoes, and other strange ingredients. It's just an homage to Lil Abner.
Yeah, so it was
homage to moonshine.
Yeah.
It was the secret division of Lockheed Martin, and they bring you the stealth fighter and the SR-71 and the U-2 spy plane. They made all the experimental stuff, and so my stepdad, they switched to a 4-day work week, but it was 10 hours a day.
You're still getting your 40 hours.
Yeah, I did that when I painted offices with Andy, the Jehovah's Witness. We would work 4 10-hour days, which I think generally people like. Like once you get up and get dressed and go to work and stuff, you're kind of there. I think so. They would do an early adapter of the at some point Lockheed moved from Burbank to like Simi Valley. They're somewhere now. I'm trying to think. Where's Magic Mountain? Is that in
That's
Simi?
Valencia.
Like Valencia, Newhall.
Yeah.
They moved way out into the desert. And they had a, extendo van, and it would pick up my stepdad at like 5 a.m, and they would pick all the other people up.
Very progressive.
Everyone who lived, this in the 80s, everyone else who worked at Lockheed lived in, North Hollywood, Burbank, Van Nuys. The van would pick up like 12 employees, drive it all the way out to the desert. But my stepdad would just sleep in the van the whole time. There's a like I said, I've done it a few times. There's nothing better than sleeping like while you're on the clock. You just sleep in the van, then they get to the Newhall, Palmdale. Yeah, Burbank to Palmdale. So this is a long haul. And they did work for 10 hours, and then you get your 3-day weekend.
That
Nice.
sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think a lot of people would be open to that, but I think this experimental plan does not see that you get all those hours in. They're literally just cutting a day.
Yes. Jay Leno probably bought the Lockheed, need all the ground for his cars, but they went in 89. They went from Burbank to Palmdale.
Oh, damn. And they got free transit.
Yeah.
But this is not the only place it's doing this.
But just to
Spain-
clarify,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You said as they get the 80% work week as long as they maintain 100% productivity.
Now, I know I know it sounds a little shady because they have to promise that they will maintain 100% productivity. And it's just an experiment to see if it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's going to last for 6 months. But other places like Spain and Scotland are also going to do this. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, okay, look, you can do all your work. And, maybe a lot of people, especially at work now, percentage-wise, if you think about it, like if you worked at a McDonald's, like I worked the grill, or you work on a construction site, then 96% of your workday is working.
Yeah.
There is no checking your phone. No one had a phone. There's no sitting down.
Oh, no.
On a construction site, it's just working with the occasional pretending to work, like walking across something with purpose and then, I don't know, taking
Running
a
out the
piss
minute.
and then walking
Yeah.
back or something. But it's all. But now, with everyone with their phones and their roto leagues and all the myriad of different ventures, like who the hell knows who's.
Right.
So now the work day, which traditionally was into the 90s in terms of percentage you are working while you are there, even us at radio stations, you showed up, you worked.
Well, I was thinking about that. Screening calls, which Gina and I both did.
Yeah.
Like you did it for 4 hours or whatever it was. Like that's your shift.
Yeah.
Answer the phone for 4 hours.
Right. But now
There's no getting it done ahead of time.
No.
we
Can't
may
be done.
be into the mid 60s in terms of percentage of work that is happening at work. So then it would. Now all we got to do is get back up to the 90s and you can do your 30-hour or 32-hour work
Well,
week.
I was going to say, if we're really thinking outside the box and trying for like maximum efficiency, right, Adam? Like say you're running a job site, whatever it is, on your own property, someone else's, whatever. Does it make more sense to be like, hey, here's the, I don't know construction well enough, you tell me, what's something that would take a week, framing out a house or a roof?
A garage,
Fine.
let's say.
Okay, this garage needs to be done this week. If you guys take 5 days, great. If you can do it in 3.5, you're getting paid the same as long as the work is done. And that'd be the maximum efficiency because they'd be working 95% of those hours, right? And they can do whatever the fuck they wanted for the last day and a half.
I think the problem with that is there's too many variables in certain things. Like we went to the lumber yard and they were out of 4x6s, so we had to go across town, and that took 2 hours. There's always these variables. I think you can definitely do that in a environment like if you were building modular homes and you said, here's our model of modular home. It's 2,800 square feet and we've done 20 of them and here's how long it takes. Now we have all the supplies here. You could assign it that way. Yes.
But also kind of coming from where you were, when I worked retail in men's suiting, it was so humiliating because you're on your feet all day and you're, going up to people who don't want you bothering them and blah, 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 blah. And then you're sitting there kind of chatting with a coworker and, God forbid, laugh or look like you're having fun. Gina, why aren't you refolding these sweaters if you have time to laugh with Ricky? And I'm like, this is so humiliating. So I would just dream of a job where someone trusted me to get my work done and not constantly micromanage me and belittle me.
Yeah.
So that does feel like the dream.
Get back to the news.
That's right. If you are doing your job, it's nice to not have somebody poking at you.
Yeah, I'll never forget Mike Stramat, my evil foreman, telling me to get the level out of his truck.
That's my favorite.
Parked up at the top of the driveway on a hill house. And I was like, all right. And I took 2 steps and he just yelled, run.
That's what I'm talking about.
I know. I know, but I ran.
You ran. Let's talk about Matthew Morrison. I'm sure you know the face if you don't know the name. Yeah. So this is the tide might be turning a little bit. And you know how you always said, Adam, like, you know, that companies and networks love to let people go before they, you know, you shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah.
Well, this happened to Matthew Morrison because he was judge on So You Think You Can Dance.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like a Broadway guy, and he's from Glee. And he was let go without really too much investigation because he supposedly sent a flirty message to one of the contestants. He was released from the show, and he said failing to follow competition production protocols, and he's a married man, kids, and blah, blah, blah. So he took to Instagram, where he posted a video to clarify what he wrote. Sources tell TMZ it was the contestant who reported the message to the show producers because it apparently was anonymous, and basically said this is problematic. Here's Matthew explaining his side of the story, and I'm just going to let him tell the whole thing.
It is self-righteous, and I love it.
Oh.
It's really unfortunate that I have to sit here and defend myself and my family against blatantly untrue statements made anonymously, but I have nothing to hide. So in the interest of transparency, I will read to you the one message that I wrote to a dancer on the show. Hey, it's Matthew. If you don't mind, would love to get your number and talk you through some things. The end. I sent this because this dancer and I both share a mutual respect for a choreographer that I've known for over 20 years.
Trying to fuck
and
for 9 years.
I was trying to help her get a job as a choreographer on the show. It's devastating that we live in this world where gossip rules and people's lives are being thrown around as clickbait. I think this is much bigger than me and this story. Gossip is toxic and it is destroying our society, and we need to do better. And in no way do I want this to take away from the show because dance has always been a unifying and healing modality.
Oh my God.
And I genuinely wish all the contestants and my fellow judges all the best.
All right, so you're not gay, number one.
Question mark?
Well, the real arbiter in this one is going to be the wife. Is she pissed? Because you know your man's techniques, angles, possibly how you met him.
I was going to say, it worked on
There's
you.
a lot of like, yeah, I was working as a choreographer and he wanted to ask me questions about my sidestep. So I get it. Now, so here I heard in his defense, so there's a rule, which is no fraternizing with the contestants, but in the European versions of this show, you're encouraged, the judges are encouraged to speak
coaching,
to.
like
This is
coach
America.
them and whatever. So I get the part where maybe he didn't know it was in the fine print of the contract. There's way too much ratting out. I mean, you get this message. It's sort of innocuous. I mean, maybe he's hitting on you. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But you as an adult can see this message and go, what's this pertain to? Or I can put you in touch with.
Yeah.
All women, many attractive and many unattractive women, are well versed in the skill of sort of shooing people off. What's this about? Or hold on, let me ask my boyfriend if he knows the name. You know, you've all done it since you're in high school. There's ways, you know, the male version of this is some business venture that you don't want to get involved with. And someone goes, I have a great idea. And you go, let me put you in touch with my financial guy. And then you call your financial guy and you tell him, don't.
Just hang
my
up.
fucking brother-in-law is a dick. Do not listen to a thing he's going to say, but feign interest.
Yes.
You know, there's a way. You don't have to call the IRS.
Right.
You don't have to report everyone.
Right. No, I think you're right. But I'm going to go ahead and venture to say that, Adam, you have never been a contestant on a game show as a civilian, as Brian and I have.
Well,
Oh, shit.
let's not forget the dating game all those years ago.
I have forgotten.
Let's not.
I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was pissed.
What?
Oh yeah, she didn't like the optics.
Wait, you were on the dating game?
No,
Oh.
I showed up because I had heard, Tom Selleck started on the dating. Everyone had done.
John Hamm.
Steve Gutenberg did that. Somehow it was a springboard, but it wasn't a springboard.
Right.
It was just shit they did before they did shit we've heard of.
Correct.
It didn't help them. But there was always the lore of all these guys.
That's where they started.
I was doing nothing, and I was like, open call for the dating game. Like, come on down. And I went down to this place like on Gower in Hollywood, studio or whatever, and just cattle calls, like 30 people. I don't know, it's 25. And they did this thing where they went, maybe they broke us off into groups, and we played the game. We played with the haggard female who was the segment producer, whatever, who you weren't attracted to, but she would read, if I was the type of ice cream,
just gonna say
would you get me in a cone or would you just lick me in a bowl?
How would you play me if I was a trumpet?
Right. And I was, good on my feet.
Actually, those would be good for you.
Had some improv chops by then. Done a couple of groundlings classes, So I kind of excelled in this. It was funny. Yeah. It was kind of charming, And then when we finished, there's like 30 of us. The casting director woman went, "All right, you guys were all great. Everyone's great. Everyone is fantastic. It was wonderful. You'll be hearing from us very soon, to see if you made the cut." And then she went, "And there's just a couple of things with a couple of folks here. I got some stuff." And it's like, Kurt Ryback, I don't have a business contact for you, Kurt. So if you just hang out and fill this thing out. And Adam Carolla, your home address. I don't have a work address for you, a contact or whatever. And I of course was like, okay, fucked up the application. Right. I put it in the wrong spot. There's like 5 of us. She said, I just want to ask you about your applications here. And the rest of you are excused. And then I, of course, went, she's just getting rid of you guys because you're losers. She's keeping us because we won this thing. And this is the way she's doing it, as a joke. And then they shut the door and she looked at me and she goes, shut up.
Thanks a lot,
That's exactly what the fuck I'm doing.
You know what? You go too.
Yeah, I was like, I remember having that happen once where I was at a party and like somebody picked up a medium-sized box and like shook it and went, like the birthday person went, well, I wonder what this could be. And I went, it's a juicer. And the person who bought it looked at me and went, fuck you. It is a juicer. Why'd you ruin it? I was like, I don't fucking know. I'm making a joke. Could have let them open it, but you had to. So anyway, I was making a joke, but it was. And she was angry at me for pointing that out. Yeah. And then later on, I think I returned and I told my girlfriend, hey, guess who made the cut on the dating game? And she wasn't happy.
I get it. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you only made it so far because you, of course, had to become obnoxious and they had to cut you.
Yes.
So when the rest of us little people go on game shows, apparently America Says, my episode is just running like hotcakes right now because everyone keeps telling me, oh yeah. But they tell you, like, if you recognize any of these producers, if you recognize another face, you come tell someone immediately. Like they put the fear in you. So they were probably like, the same thing with the contestants. Like if anyone tries to contact you, because they'll just disqualify you. Yeah. So she was probably like, this dude DM'd me. And then that was that. But also, how they say for women right now, like you need the receipts. You need, if you're calling out, domestic abuse, you need to have hospital records. You need to have a picture, something. For him just to go, hey, I'd love your number to talk about a few things. You say, so-and-so choreographer, right? I do too. Question about that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he needs his receipts too.
What'll really solve this is his wife's take, and we need to see a shot of the lady he was contacting, because that's the way. If you saw a nice shot of her, you go, oh, yeah.
Type.
Look, she's 23.
Poor thing. So if she's not attractive enough, that he's vindicated.
That's how we do it.
Yeah, forget it. They're still pulling that ruse 10 years later, because I went on a lot of game show auditions back in the mid-2000s. I wasn't doing so well financially, and that was going to be my ticket out of poverty.
It kind of was.
It kind of was. And that happened to me. I didn't make this night comment like, oh, you losers are out of here. They held us back, the ones who passed the audition. Surreptitiously. They're like, we need a little more information from these people. Brian Bishop, so-and-so, and 5 of us.
Yeah.
They're still pulling that ruse.
Makes sense. I believed her. I thought there was something wrong with my application, and I was just trying to overcompensate with a joke. But evidently that's what they did.
All right. Do we have time for one more?
One more.
Oh, good. So this Instagram model, and boy, oh boy, you're going to plots when you see the picture.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, she got booted. Go ahead, put up the picture. The video. She got booted from an airplane because of her massive breasts. But apparently, that's not what happened.
Was it a small plane? Because they got to balance
They
those
do.
out.
Yeah.
Now, she has 22 pounds of boob.
She's just a walking graffiti train subway car.
Rough.
She's got tats all over her face.
Lips
Her
look
lips
like,
are. It's hard. Look,
They look like the old school,
wax lips.
yeah, that, but like the not very, like the primitive sex doll.
Yes.
You just put them on.
What? I mean, I know.
Like for a bachelor party.
This parallel universe Gina.
That's true. That's right.
Things had gone horribly wrong.
She is
that's botched.
grotesque to look at, and her plastic surgeon should be drummed out of the industry. That's what I would say.
Isn't it first do no harm?
I got to say that the rules for plastic surgery can't be, I'll find somebody to put 2 Volkswagen Beetles in my chest. You know what I mean? It's disgusting. But anyway.
This, like that body mod stuff with like the spikes in your head and shit. So TMZ reports, by the way, her name is Mary Magdalene.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she calls herself. She claims American Airlines removed her from a flight because of her revealing tank top from Canada to the U.S., and that's very discriminatory. However, sources at American Airlines say that no, she was sitting, first of all, in random seats before takeoff. She wouldn't get up. She wasn't ticketed for these seats, just sitting around, whatever. Seemed to be very intoxicated, unstable. So flight attendants and the captain asked her to leave. Of course, this is different from her side of the situation. She claims she was kicked off for being too explicit in her tank top.
Well, look.
But I want to read you her statement.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm going to read you the exact quote that she put up on Instagram, and you tell me if it sounds like it's possible she may have been intoxicated.
Yes.
I'm going to read it exactly as written. Obviously, this is why we kick me off, because I loom to explicate bit.
Wait, we isn't even spelled right.
That's not legal, so she had to say it's because I was sleeping and wouldn't hear her girl bye. All her de taf as on my side, getin vusud eor.
Wow.
I think it's possible
so she sounds
intoxicated.
Valedictorian.
All right. Look, here's the deal. We have to have some standards, even if they just kicked you off. Look, if you've got huge fake titties, that's fine. And if you want to wear a tank top, that's fine. But you can't have huge fake titties and the tank top on the commercial flight. Mm-hmm. That's all. Just like some places own nightclubs and they're like no ball caps and no hoodies. And all right, that's their nightclub and that's what it is. And people fly with their kids and maybe this is scaring little Cindy.
Get an AIDS quilt, something big, drape it over the front.
That is right.
Okay.
So good riddance to her. All right, shall we bring it home?
Let's do it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Gina Grad. That was the news with Gina Grad.
Well, let me tell you about not Tommy John, JB Weld. That's what I wanted to say. World's strongest bond. The brands DIYers and pros have trusted for over 50 years. You can use their epoxies, their super glues. They got putty sticks. You have stuff. The stuff breaks, and all we want to do is throw it away and order some more junk from China and fill up another landfill. Do not do it. JB Weld works on practically any surface: metal, wood, plastics, glass, and ceramics. Keep it in your kitchen drawer, your toolbox, or down in your garage like I do. Also, proud owner of Herculiner, the original DIY truck bed liner. If you're looking for the world's strongest truck bed liner, Herculiner, well, they got you covered. JB Weld is available at jbweld.com. Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, AutoZone, Advance Auto Parts, O'Reilly, Amazon, Michaels, and more. And it's proudly made in the U.S. of A. It is JB Weld. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back and do a one-on-one with one of my favorites, Mike Rowe, right after this.
The Adam Carolla Show presents Mike Rowe's birthday cocktail party for March 18th. Let's see who's invited. Let's welcome the 22nd and 24th President of the United States, Grover Cleveland. Here's the inventor of the diesel engine, Rudolph Diesel, and he's pissed off about the price of fuel. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain is here. The guy who invented the gas mask, Clooney McPherson. Actor Peter Graves is here. Country singer Charlie Pride joins us. Wilson Pickett will show up in the midnight hour. Vanessa Williams is here. NFL wide receiver Andre Rison. Michael Rappaport just walked in. Dane Cook. We welcome Queen Latifah. And the singer for the Alan Parsons Project, Eric Wolfson. Mike Rowe is on the Adam Carolla Show.
Well, Dirty Jobs is coming back for a 10th groundbreaking season, which is being shot now. It'll air on Discovery. And Mike's got a bunch of series, also podcasts, the way I heard it. I was honored to be a guest on last month. Good to see you, Mike Rowe.
Great to see you back, Adam. How's Tricks?
Tricks are good, and I always look forward to speaking to Mike Rowe because I feel like we're kindred spirits, although our backgrounds aren't really the same. Our backgrounds are quite a bit different, but I think we kind of ended up in the same place. Your background is performance and theater. I'm also reading here you were an Eagle Scout. Let's talk about that.
Oh, Jesus.
Let's give the audience your background in theater and I believe musicals as well, right?
Look, I mean, it's a crooked road, man. I grew up on a little farm north of Baltimore City, and there was a hill that I lived on with my mom and dad, my younger brothers, and next to us were my grandparents, Carl and Thelma. My granddad, now there's a guy you would know, not by name. It was Carl Noble was his name, but he built the house I was born in without a blueprint. And he only went to the 7th grade. He became a master electrician, steam fitter, pipe fitter, welder. He could take your watch apart, put it back together blindfolded. You know, he was that guy. He had the chip. He was sort of a hero in the community, the guy you called who could fix or repair anything. I worked as his apprentice for a couple of years as a teenager, but the handy gene, to my eternal surprise and regret, is recessive. And I just didn't get his natural ability to fix stuff. I was sure I would eventually, but it never really came easily to me. And so he was the guy who pulled me aside. I was 17. I had just bitched up a concrete pour. We were working on a patio at a church. Anyhow, he said, "Look, Mike, you can be a tradesman if you want. It's just a state of mind, but do yourself a favor and get a different toolbox." So I wound up going to a community college. I studied all sorts of things I wasn't really interested in, philosophy and math, and, acting, singing, all of that stuff. And I just kind of crept into it. There was also a high school music teacher who sort of grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and cured a stammer that had plagued me most of my young life, forced me to sing in a barbershop quartet because he was like a big deal in the barbershop world. And yeah, and there was a scoutmaster too, a former lieutenant colonel who made us do skits and made us memorize long poems like The Cremation of Sam McGee and Dangerous Dan McGrew and all these crazy old songs that we'd have to sing around the campfire. And I just eventually found myself more interested in doing things I didn't think I would enjoy. It was really, I think I said this to you once before, but it was that the summer when I was 16 was the summer I realized just because you loved something didn't mean you couldn't suck at it. And a few years later, just because you weren't really into something didn't necessarily mean you might not be good at it. And ever since that basic lesson sunk in, I kind of hit the reset button and Forrest Gumped my way into the industry that you and I both occupy today.
Yeah, it's not discussed enough, the things that you can do versus what you should be doing, or, I mean, we kind of understand the Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, but he wanted to play baseball, but he was really more suited for basketball. But somebody who works as hard as he could have some life as a baseball player, but not nearly the life he would have as a basketball player. And we kind of do a thing in society like, look, if you love it and set your goals and everything's achievable, and it's not really if you're not cut out for certain things. And I learned that lesson as well. And I did a lot of sketch and improvisational comedy. I couldn't do characters. I couldn't do voices. I couldn't do accents. And after years of doing it, I was like, well, you can do this. You can do it, but you're never going to be great at it. So why not find some other version of a sport, like it's all under the heading of sports, but within sports, there's, hockey and basketball and baseball, like all the different sports. Find a sport that you could excel at within the heading of, athletics.
But that's the thing, right? So I grew up not far from Cal Ripken. We played soccer together, and there were a couple of pickup games of basketball that we played together. And this guy was devastating. He was a devastating athlete, right? He was great on the basketball court. He was unbeatable on the soccer field. But as it turns out, his obvious gift, was to play 2,100 games in a row in Major League Baseball and set all kinds of records. So he had to choose the right sport in the world of sport. Where it gets interesting today is, when that was a course correction for Cal. Mm-hmm. For me, it was like, no, dude, wait, you cannot do any of the things you thought you were going to do. You can try, but you're not going to make money in the construction trades. And it's kind of like, this is how I ran into Dennis Prager. Actually, I did a commencement speech for PragerU that talked about this exact thing. And I liken it to American Idol, not the winners, but the 20,000 people who show up, many of whom are in their early 20s, absolutely convinced they have a shot at winning this thing. And not only do they not win, but they learn, in many cases for the first time, in front of a national audience, that they can't even sing. Like they can't even carry a tune in a bucket. But for some reason, their entire lives, they've been encouraged to follow their dream and pursue their passion and stay the course. And don't let anybody tell you can't do it. And it drives me crazy, Adam, because you can turn on the Grammys, any broadcast over the last 10 years, and there's Cher or Lady Gaga or fill in the blank, holding their trophies and looking into the lens and telling millions of people, see, it's possible. If you just stay the course, if you just dream a little harder, your dreams can come true. And that's just such an awful load of crap. There's absolutely no reason to think that your dream and your abilities are going to somehow coincidentally line up. Sometimes they do, sometimes they get close, but a lot of the time, no,
well,
man.
it's mathematically impossible, like reincarnation, which is I was a nobleman, and I was a queen, and it's like somebody shoveled horse shit. I got news for you. Somebody's coming back with a flathead shovel in their hand and flies around them. Like, you couldn't have all been nobility. The ratio of serfs to nobility was already outrageous back then. Now, so I feel the same way about the dream. The dream is, it's a math. It's if you would like to work at McDonald's, anyone can work at McDonald's. I worked at McDonald's. Seems like many successful people I speak to, their first job is like at McDonald's. So there's no barrier to entry if you want to work at McDonald's. If you would like to be Pavarotti and a famous opera singer, then there is a barrier to entry. Or Cal Ripken, there's only so many shortstop jobs available in Major League Baseball. So the more mathematics are fighting against you, because the loftier the dream, I'm going to win Top Gun Pilot of the Year. Well, mathematically, there's only one plaque that's delivered once a year, and we got 330 million people in this country. So now the odds are against you, and then we've been filling your head with this, high self-esteem movement bullshit where we're telling every kid dream and, you could be Oprah or the next president of the United States. And, well, then your reality is going to set in. You're not going to achieve that. And then you're going to be disappointed. And then you'll be that waitress that nobody wants because she thinks she should be somewhere else instead of bringing you ham and eggs. And it's a recipe for disaster. What should be delivered is you can have a lot of happiness and a lot of satisfaction in life with your family, with a skill, with your faith, with your community, and just with pride, working hard, job well done, sense of accomplishment. There's a great life waiting for you out there with that. And there are many successful poets and actors who've killed themselves.
That's exactly it. The problem with job satisfaction is that people think it's a function of the job. And it's not. It's a function of the person. To your point, if being a poet made you universally satisfied, then Sylvia Plath probably wouldn't have stuck her head in the oven, you know? And it's also tricky too. This comes up all the time with my foundation. We award these work ethic scholarships, and it's very, very difficult to, evaluate a person's work ethic, especially on an application. But part of the reason we're in such a fix in the country, I think, is because you look at American Idol as one path. I mean, we actually put the word idol in the show, right? It's so you can become the very best of the thing, the wish fulfillment, the embodiment of your dreams. But over here at McDonald's, to take your example, people tend to look at that as the only rung on the ladder. It's okay, would you like fries with that? And that's what you're going to do at McDonald's for the rest of your life. But the truth is, the overwhelming majority of people who own those franchises started by saying, would you like fries with that? And those people are prospering. And so the idea that you are stuck if you're a McDonald's worker and that's your lot in life, the idea that if you're an apprentice on a construction site, that's as far as you can go. The idea that, okay, you're a welder, right? We've assisted something like 700 welders get their certification. Some of them right now are making low six figures, and they are going to be welding 20, 30 years from now, and they couldn't be happier. Others have advanced their certifications and are now making 300 grand a year welding underwater, doing really difficult, highly risky, but amazingly artistic projects out of sight, out of mind. And others, and these are the ones nobody ever talks about, they took their welding certificate and they got pretty good at it. And then they picked up a plumbing certificate and then they got pretty good at that. And then they got heating, air conditioning, HVAC. Then they bought a van, hired a couple of buddies who were similarly credentialed. And now there's a mechanical services company with a dozen employees and 3 vans. And that all happened because somebody somewhere said, yeah, I'll learn to weld. I'll push a bead. Would you like fries with that? And so we can't just narrow these things down into these super skinny verticals and perpetuate the notion that just because you're doing a thing means that's the thing you're going to do till the end of time. It's crazy, but a lot of people put themselves in that box.
Yeah, well, I guess the immediate gratification with the sort of shortened attention span hasn't helped that. And again, your job isn't to be special. Your job is to be happy and contribute. I think everyone thinks I have to be special. I have to make my mark. And also, and I bring this up from time to time because I experienced it in my own life, there is a sense of happiness that comes with a sense of satisfaction when you try to do your job, which you may not enjoy currently, like working at McDonald's, to the best of your ability. It changes your entire posture, and your mind changes as well. And I always tell the story of I was a carpenter who wanted to be a comedian, and there's nothing, there's certain jobs, like you could be a singing waiter and want to be an actor, and maybe there's some connective tissue between those two. Like when I taught comedy traffic school, I felt like, okay, there's some connection between standing in front of this group of traffic offenders and standing in front of a group at a nightclub. Like I could build a bridge to that, but it's really hard to build a bridge between doing comedy and hanging sheetrock all day silently. But I immediately got happier when I just decided this is my lot in life, and this is what I shall be doing for the foreseeable future. And I'm going to do it as best I can. I'm going to get organized.
It's a huge relief when you limit your options. I used to think all the time, man, I would be so much better if the Discovery Channel would just let me do whatever I wanted to do. If Dirty Jobs could be anything I wanted it to be. But the truth is, for me anyway, that blank page and the potential, the possibility to make anything you want, that didn't really help me a lot. What helped me a lot was understanding what the Discovery Channel was in 1993 when I started there, and what they were in 2003 when I sold them Dirty Jobs, and what they are today. And so, in 2003, every show was super similar. Like there was always a credible insider. There was always a host who talked in a crisp, well-modulated baritone. And there was a predictability to their programming. Same was true of QVC years before that, where I got my first job. I was surrounded by people who were doing the same basic thing in the same basic way. So all I really had to do to be different, or in some people's opinions, irreverent or subversive, all I really had to do was be a little different. I didn't have to be outrageous. So on Dirty Jobs, I just said, look, I'm not going to be a voice of authority. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to defer to the people I'm working with. I'm going to let them be the expert, and I'm going to be the avatar. And, to your point, for me, the big shift came when I said, wait a second, I've been freelancing as a host for 20 years. I was doing okay when I was 43 years old and started doing Dirty Jobs, but it didn't really turn for me until I said, what if you're not really a host? Or actually the question was, what if you're a better guest than you are a host? And what if you start acting that way? And suddenly a new format was born, and that show has been on the air every week for the last 20 years. Mostly, I think, because I stopped trying to do it the way everybody told me I had to do it. And it's those little distinctions, I think, and the way you see yourself. You said there's no great bridge between being a carpenter and being a comedian. And I think that's probably true at a glance, hammering nails and telling jokes. I guess we could probably torture the metaphor and find something there. But the mindset, Adam, I mean, tell me if you disagree, but to me, when my pop said, look, you can be a tradesman, doesn't matter what you do, that was one of those light bulb moments, because I was like, oh shit, he's right. I don't really care about the underlying trade. What I was enamored with was the idea of jobs that had a beginning and a middle and an end, jobs that would allow me to travel, jobs that would allow me to freelance and eat what I killed and, make enough money to be comfortable and have enough time off to do what I wanted to do. And that's what most of the tradespeople I know do. They set their own schedule, they decide on their own identity, and they go to where the work is. So, yeah, for me, there is a bridge between carpentry and comedy, and it's your state of mind. How do you see yourself, as a jobber or as an employee? And, one answer, in my view, leads to something like drudgery, and the other leads to something like freedom. So, yeah, it's an important question to kick around.
You brought up beginning, middle, and end, and I was just on the phone with Dr. Drew a couple hours ago, kind of discussing the importance of beginning, middle, and end. And I don't think it's something that's really discussed, which is the beginning, the middle, and the end, and the process of then a new beginning, a new middle, and a new end. And it used to be pretty ubiquitous. If you were a horseshoer or you worked at a logging camp or you framed barns, there's just a beginning, a middle, and the end. And we now live in a society where there's a lot of people that are just experiencing one long middle, and and they're dissatisfied, and they should be. Like I think when you get a job where you're just sitting in air conditioning and you're in a cubicle and you're just sort of processing an endless amount of data that never really has an end, I think it's leading to a lot of the psychosis that we're having as a community. Just the blue collar world is a very tactile beginning, middle, end, and you get the satisfaction of saying, like, I have an idea. Maybe that idea is to build a tree house, but maybe that idea is to build a bridge or whatever that idea is, and then at some point you start sketching out a plan and what this thing may look like. And then you put together a list and you go to the lumber yard and at some point it's done and you crack a beer and you step back and you look at it. And more importantly, at some point, some couples come over for a barbecue and they admire your tree house and they go, geez, who'd you get to build that? I want them to come in, and you go, I built that tree house. You have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have an end, and the end kind of keeps going because the end, you get trophies for the end. That's all the books you've written are up on the shelf of your office, or your gold record, or whatever that thing is, or your welding certificate. That's framed and on the wall of the office. Like that's an end. And we're now in a digital world that doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and an end for so many people. And those are the people that seem least satisfied.
Absolutely. Look, people ask me all the time, what do dirty jobbers know as a group that the rest of us have forgotten? And the honest answer to that's a 400-page book I can't get around to finishing. But one of the chapters for sure will talk about the fact that your office, where you're sitting right now, looks pretty much the same at 5 a.m. as it does at 5 p.m. I mean, this place that doesn't change, right? So I've got no visual cue in my life to tell me when I'm done. Dirty jobbers do. They don't need a foreman to tell them how they're doing. They don't need progress reports. They don't need focus groups. They don't need any of that. They can look around and they can see how they're doing constantly. And it's that level of feedback that is weirdly addictive. Once you get used to it, and again, I don't think it's unique to the trades. Anybody can find it, but it's a hell of a lot easier when you're building a tactile thing. But I'm not sure it's so different when you're telling a good joke either. Like Henny Youngman told jokes. Lots of people tell jokes in ways that elevate the punchline, and you can hear them rushing to the punchline. It's like a bad date. You need to take the time, open the door for her, pull out the chair, be interesting during conversation, open the door back when she gets in the car, come home, maybe light a candle, pour a drink. Way leads on to way, and who knows, maybe it ends in a happy exchange of fluids and maybe it doesn't. But you can't just rush to the end. Norm Macdonald was such a great comedian because he spent a lot of time in the middle. He found ways to make the middle fun, and you could see him. I mean, even in his ubiquitous, The Moth Story, and so many others. This is going to be a Shaggy Dog story. And once you sign on for that, you don't really care what the punchline is because you're watching a tradesman build something right in front of you, a different kind of tradesman. But I didn't know Norm, but I always thought of my pop when I watched him do his thing because I could see him building it as he went. And it was fun to watch his progress. And if you can figure out a way to do that, whether you're in McDonald's or McDonnell Douglas, then you win.
Yeah, I never really thought about the other aspect to the trade, which is, as you said, exactly how the progress is going because you could look around and you can see exactly how it's going. Every step of the way how it's going. And it also eliminates the ability of the supervisor who has it out for you, and then he's going to show up and say, you screwed up the Jenkins account when all he wants is that promotion, or he's jealous of your girlfriend and he wants you remove all the politics, mostly politics that people manufacture as an excuse to get out of, Herb never liked me, so of course he's got a problem with my work. But you can't have a problem with a welding bead. It's either right. You can look at a weld, even a lay person can look at a great weld and look at a bad weld and look at everything in between and label it and go, that's an excellent weld. That's a horrible weld. You can do that with hanging a door or putting baseboard or crown or casing up, drywall, whatever. It's like there is no arguing with it. There is no, my boss is jealous and that's why this weld sucks.
It's either plumb or it's not. It either fits or it doesn't, right? And so there's a simplicity to that. But what you said before, I keep coming back to the binary thing, the McDonald's or, the carpenter or the comedian, the this or that. I don't know if you'll remember this, but in 2016, the Republicans were having their big debate, like 17 people up there on stage. And at some point, I don't remember what led up to it, but Marco Rubio said, what this country needs are more welders and fewer philosophers. And I got thousands of people in social media saying, hey, man, did you hear that? This guy's singing your song. And I said, you know what? He's not, actually. I don't mean to say that our country needs more of one thing and less of another. I think, really, it would be nice if we had more philosophers who could run an even bead. And I think it would be nice if we had more welders who could talk intelligently about Descartes and Nietzsche. And it doesn't have to be one or the other, but we're constantly given examples that suggests you can't do both, but you can. And, sure. when you and I went to school, we didn't have this thing, this iPhone and this, internet connection, spotty though it may be, but we've got access to 98% of the known information in the world. And I say it to the welders we train all of the time. I'm like, look, man, don't stop being curious about things you don't think you're interested in. Keep learning stuff, for God's sakes. Otherwise, you're going to become tiresome. I don't care how good you are at whatever your chosen trade is.
Well, I guess we're kind of talking about being what we used to call a Renaissance man. And I think we all understand that. And we all kind of like, at least historically, we like the notion of a Renaissance man. And I agree with you. Let's have the welder who's curious about philosophy, and let's have the philosopher who can, fix their intake manifold on their F-150 with a bead of weld. But I'm wondering now if we've gotten away from the Renaissance man theorem. I wonder if we're so into specialization now, and we give it's so coveted, this guy can do this one thing better than anybody else, and thus we will hail him as a hero. I first off, the Renaissance man is there's a lot of happiness in that because it's got a lot of balance to it. Like people would say, when I used to be a carpenter, they would say, oh, everyone who worked in an office would say, what I wouldn't give to be outdoors and work, and take my shirt off and work out in the breeze, with nature. And then what I would say is all the guys on the construction site would love to get some air conditioning and a coffee pot down the hall and a bathroom with a door on it. Like, you don't get it. These guys would all like to move. And so then the answer is, well, what's better, working outdoors in the sunshine or working indoors in the air conditioning? And the answer is doing both. The answer is being in the office for 4 hours in the air conditioning and then going outside and working up a sweat.
Yes.
That's the happiest. The happiest. It's not that one is inherently better than the other. They're just different. And that's where the variety kicks in. So that, in a sense, that is being a Renaissance man.
Of course. Look, I wish there were something new to say about this. I really do, because I don't, everything in moderation has been around for, millennia. It's like the best advice in the world we've become weirdly suspicious of. And the worst advice in the world has been accepted as conventional wisdom.
Right.
And we just try and outfox ourselves at every turn. I mean, what's your favorite meal? What's your favorite thing to eat?
Yeah, I was about to bring this up. I would say barbecued ribs, but not more than 2.5 days in a row. Then we got to get some sushi.
How about 2 years in a row? How about 20 years? I mean, there are a lot of reasons I think that people are not satisfied with their jobs, but that's a big one. It's this idea that, my God, are you really going to do the same thing in the same way, day after day, week after week, year after year? I don't care how glamorous it is. But to our earlier point, if being a rock star were some sort of guarantee to happiness, well, then you and I right now are each doing a very quick mental inventory of all the rock stars who have killed themselves or blown themselves up or become just patently miserable. If being a celebrity was really the key to some level of happiness, can somebody explain Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and what the hell happened there? And I mean, this is an obvious thing to say. And I hate myself for saying obvious things, but it just feels like that's what needs to be heard right now. You need to do it all. Get out of whatever you think your comfort zone is. That's a place that's going to slowly wring you dry of anything that might be confused with ambition.
I want to ask you about the general demeanor of the folks you encountered in dirty jobs, and I'll tease it because I got to do a spot here, and I'll front load it by saying I toggle between the sort of blue collar world and then the artistic world quite a bit in my literally day to day. And I go talk to the other guys who are mechanics who are working on my race cars. And sometimes I'll go talk to the guys who are doing the home improvement jobs or whatever it is I'm working on, and then I go talk to the creatives in another building. And there's a lot more sense of ease amongst the mechanical guys. They're a comfort in their own skin. Less just in general, there was no COVID talk, for instance, versus the artists, where there's a lot of COVID talk. The mechanical guys, it was like it wasn't happening. We just talked about whatever the job we're working on. Now, there's not a glee in what they do. There's a quiet satisfaction that gives you a sense of the people being sort of purposeful and centered, versus sort of dangling in the wind and, oh, we had a great day because I got this phone call from such and such, and then we're having a horrible day because I got another phone call from somebody else that said something different, the next day. And so I started to put together this theory that I think that the people that work with their hands have this groundedness that prevents them from having these wild swings one way or the other. But I'd be curious of your composite of the average guy you encountered in dirty jobs. I'll tease that. First, I'll tell you about, and the through lines sort of psychologically that were held within those gentlemen and ladies. First, I'll tell you about Tommy John. Dad saved your butt countless times. Return the favor with the new Tommy John underwear. Dads agree that you can get a lot more comfortable, and when you are, everything is better. Breathable, lightweight fabric with 4 times the stretch of competing brands. Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics. Over 17 million pairs sold. I'm wearing my Tommy Johns right now. Would not leave the house without them, and especially if you're up on your feet and you're working and you're moving and you're working a little lather up, you've got to go with Tommy John. It's the best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free. Guaranteed. Am I right, Dawson?
This Father's Day, shop TommyJohn.com/Adam for up to $30 off site-wide plus free shipping. Now through June 15th, get up to $30 off site-wide plus free shipping at TommyJohn.com/Adam. TommyJohn.com/Adam. See site for details.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Back with Mike Rowe right after this. All right, Mike, I set up your question about the people you encountered with dirty jobs by and large, and what was their mindset that seemed to be repetitive or through line that they all seem to possess?
Well, they all wore Tommy John for one thing.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it was Shakespearean, Adam, honestly. It's like Richard III, right? Or was it the fifth? We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. There was sort of a tacit understanding among sewer inspectors and roofers and skull cleaners and electricians that if they all stayed home for a week, they knew that polite society would go off the rails. They knew it. And even if this was really, I'm talking about before Dirty Jobs right now, when there were no shows that really celebrated that, one of the first things that I saw when we really dug into it was that they were okay. They were okay not being celebrated. Many of them had kind of made their peace with the fact that they labored out of sight and out of mind. And so I'm generalizing, but it was that awareness that they were contributing in a way that was visually undeniable, that allowed them to see with their own eyes that they were moving the needle. The creatives that you talked about before the break, it's harder for them to know empirically that they're making a difference. For one thing, so many people want to be creatives, and so they know that there are people standing in the wings waiting to replace them the moment they screw it up. Your mechanical buddies, on the other hand, there are not as many people, back to your mathematical point, there are not as many people who can do what they do. And part of the trick in your question is that those mechanical guys are as artistic as the artistic guys, just in a different way. So when you think about the way in which we removed shop class from high schools, for instance, I think this is really interesting. And you're old enough to remember, before it was shop, it was the vocational arts. Mm-hmm. Like the art was actually in the title of the thing. Mm-hmm. And we took the art out of it, and that left vocational education. And then we shortened that to VOTEC, put a hyphen in there, which is always the kiss of death. Mm-hmm. And then we started calling it shop. And then we walked it out behind the barn and shot it in the head. And so we got shop class out of high school. We created all kinds of problems as a result of doing that. But it began by arbitraging the art out of it. And so, why are your mechanical buddies slightly better adjusted than your creative friends? I think on some level it's because they know that. They haven't stopped looking at themselves or their work as artistic, and they know it. And it's something that a lot of other people have forgotten. We don't use the word craftsman the way we used to. We use words like, tradie or jobber or help, So I part of it has to do with a general understanding among dirty jobbers that they're moving the needle. Part of it has to do with visual competence, right? These are competent men and women, by and large, who can prove their competence very quickly. And that leads to a level of confidence. And that, I think, is what you see in your two divergent groups of friends.
Well, imagine,
it's a question of confidence.
Yeah, well, imagine the anxiety-inducing version of this, which is, I'm now old enough and white enough and heterosexual enough where I talk to some of my contemporaries in Hollywood, and they're like, hey, man, I'm white, I'm old, I'm straight. There ain't no jobs. They don't need me. They don't need me. I'm gone. I mean, imagine how much anxiety that would create. You're a person in your 50s. You've got, 25 years experience in a business. And because you're white and male and heterosexual, it's like no jobs on Netflix for me. And
sorry.
Obviously, that's going to induce some anxiety. Now, the other guys who are, one guy I think of in particular, Sean, is just a very, very skilled fabricator. And I just love a fabricator, real world-class fabricator, builds stuff for my race cars that don't exist because a lot of the stuff was one-off and then he has to recreate it and blah, blah, blah. He has no anxiety about being put out to pasture as a world-class fabricator, regardless of his sexual proclivities. He's in demand. Mm-hmm. There's only so many of them. And he knows it. And he knows he can walk across the street and get a job.
That's my point.
And right. So obviously there's going to be a sense of security that is not going to provoke the anxiety. And in terms of the fabricators, it's a meritocracy. When it comes to Hollywood, it's whatever du jour. I don't know. Who do you know? What do you look like? We're looking to fill a few boxes with this ethnicity or that group, and you could be left out of that. So it would cause anxiety in any profession if it was based on things that went above that had nothing to do with your skill set per se, and your skill set couldn't really be measured even, because it's, again, we can see right. My 15-year-old son can tell you if a bead is good on a weld or not, and he's never been around a heliarc or MIG or a TIG. But the other, and I'm going to shift gears here just quickly because I'm seeing you doing your show, How America Works, which is on Fox Business Network, and I see you pop up on Tucker Carlson and other Fox programs. I've been relegated to Fox programs as well because somehow my weird homespun pragmatism has made me some sort of leader of the Trump parade. I don't know what happened to just talking about, morals and ethics and hard work and, how grandpa used to do it and how we used to do in this country. When did that make you some NRA gun-toting right-wing, Hannity's bosom buddy? I don't know why the left needs to do that. I know there's a kind of a snobbery that has to do with college versus welding school, but I don't know when it got so political. I look at you as one of the most reasonable thinkers I've ever heard in my life, and I should see you pop up equally on CNN and on Fox, and I would say the same for Dr. Drew or Mark Garagos or even myself, except for we've all been thrown off of CNN for saying, I'm not even sure what, for just not agreeing with insanity.
Look, part of it has to do with the fact that everybody wants to be able to look at a weld and immediately know that it's good or bad. But metaphorically speaking, you can't do that with people. You have to actually talk to them. You have to peel back the layers. And you have to, if you're genuinely curious and intellectually honest, you have to listen. And then you have to form an opinion. And then you have to at least acknowledge the possibility that the cognitive dissonance you're feeling might not be the enemy of reason. And you can therefore be friends with somebody who might not agree with you in every imaginable way. So I think a lot of people in our industry are now looking at guys like you and me, and lots of people as well, and immediately concluding that guy can't weld, or that guy can, or he's a this or he's a that. Okay, he's white, or maybe he's Latino, he's married, maybe he's single, maybe this, maybe that. And we are falling over ourselves to sum up in a way that we shouldn't, because people are a lot more complicated than a seam in a metal box. But we just have lost our nuance. I had a show on CNN for 3 years. I mean, I've been on MSNBC plenty of times. I've been on NPR more times than I can count. I've been on PBS. I remember one week, Adam, when things really started to shit the bed. This would have been 2016. I was out promoting our work ethic scholarship program. And to be fair, I was hawking whatever other shows I was involved in at the time. I always mix my peas with my carrots as best I can. But I was really leaning into the foundation's work and trying to reach new audiences. So I went on Bill Maher, and we had a great conversation. Spoke for, 10, 15 minutes, touched on unions a little bit, touched on some things that he and I don't necessarily agree with. But by and large, we had a really engaging, civilized conversation about the changing face of the modern day proletariat, right? The increasingly vague definition of a good job. And then 2 days later, I had the exact same conversation with Glenn Beck down in Texas. And when I got home, I opened up my Facebook page, which at the time had about 5 million people on it. And holy crap, dude, I almost said I've never seen anything like it, but unfortunately I've seen a lot of things like it, in the last 6 years. But that was the first time I saw my buddies on the right completely come unhinged because they saw me sitting next to the wrong guy. Bill Maher was the wrong guy for me to be sitting next to, and the optics alone were enough to render 1 million of my friends, my supposed online friends, render them incapable of hearing what I was saying. And of course, when I popped up on Glenn Beck 2 days later, the exact same thing happened. All my buddies on the left, how could you? Mike, how could you sit next to that foaming racist? How could you have a conversation with him? How could you put your imprimatur of nonpartisan decency in your foundation? Blah, blah, blah. It was the same. It's not the fact, Adam, that it was the same thing on both sides. It was the fact that it happened so fast within a 48-hour period that was the moment I realized, something really has happened. It doesn't matter what you said to Dennis Prager. It doesn't matter what I said to Dennis Prager. Problem is, you and I were both spotted working with Dennis Prager, and that's enough to render us irrelevant to a big chunk of the country. But, last week I was on PBS, and, I work for the Discovery Channel, which, believe me, is not exactly a bastion of conservative thought. And happily, we still get along okay. But I don't know where it ends. And this, obviously, there's not much new to say about cancellation that hasn't been said. But man, I know it's happened to you. It happened to me last week. You'll love this. I had a Dirty Jobs show set up with 3 Boilermakers in DC. And we had spent 2 months researching this. We had gone in, we'd done some pre-production, we'd shot some things, we got all the permissions. The Boilermakers were working in a facility that was under the purview of the GSA, or the Governmental Services Administration. So we needed their permission. We needed permits. We applied. We got the permits, easy. No fuss, no muss. That was 2.5 months ago. The crew went back multiple times to make sure everything was squared up and ready to go. The night before I flew in, my production team got a call from somebody we hadn't heard of at the GSA who pulled the permits. And we said, why? And they said, security reasons. So what kind of security reasons? I mean, this is a non-secure building, for one thing. Secondly, we were in the basement. I was going to be working inside of a giant boiler. I mean, there's no state secrets down there. But they said, we're really not at liberty to discuss it. And we said, well, this is a real problem for us. We've spent time, we've spent money. I got a crew who freelances. They took their day off and so forth and so on. And they're like, look, this came down from the highest levels. It's non-negotiable. The permits are pulled and you cannot film here. So I didn't think much of it, except it was an extraordinary display of bad manners more than anything else. We'd done everything right, and somebody somewhere decided, I mean, what are you going to do? The government says there's a security concern. But then we got another phone call about 8 hours later. And I've got the names of the people. It doesn't matter, but they're not coming out of the blue. This guy called, identified himself, and said, look, here's what really happened. Somebody over here, way up the food chain, has some sort of problem with something Mike did or said. I'm not sure what. Maybe it's his new show on Fox. I don't know. But this was a deliberate attempt to yank his chain, waste his time. And that's why the permit was pulled. And again, I'm trying not to feel paranoid about the whole thing, but I'm looking back at Dirty Jobs. I'm looking at what we've done over the years. I've been in super secure locations. I've got permits from the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Seabees, the Coast Guard. I've shot at the NSA. I've shot in super sensitive places, in nuclear reactors, on an aircraft carrier with nuclear weapons on it, in the weapons room. But no, we can't risk you in the basement of some ordinary building outside of DC celebrating the work of Boilermakers. So now you have to decide what to do about it. Whine about it, you can complain about it, and I'll bitch to you about it. And I wrote something on Facebook about it, but mostly you just put your head down and you keep going. Yeah. But look, you have to ask this. If you're going to mess with me, Mike Rowe, a guy who's producing a show that is just giving a shout out to America's Boilermakers, who are keeping the lights on literally in DC. If you're going to mess with me because I have a show on Fox Business, or because I said something on Facebook that you didn't like, then what are you going to do with an RFP for $20, $30 million that you got to bid out? and you have to go through a dozen vendors. You know, I mean, you're the government. You can do anything you want. You can go to their Facebook pages. You can make a call. How many people have been disqualified from doing good, honest, nonpartisan work because they were spotted sitting next to the wrong dude or sent out the wrong tweet? I have no idea, but I'd wager the answer is a freaking bunch.
Yeah, it's sad. The sad part is the sort of punitive part of the whole thing, which is you showed up on a Dennis PragerU video, and now you must be punished. It's the and now you must be punished part that's the insane part. But the most insidious part of this entire thing that we're talking about, this chapter we're in, is so many people remaining silent because they quietly agree with the thing that's insidious, which is, well, it's our side that's doing it, so I'm not going to say anything. Like, it's the most un-American thing you could do. You want to talk about McCarthyism. This is it.
I tell you.
And you guys are sitting around. I'm not saying you're cheering it on. You're just kind of looking the other way. There's basically Mike Rowe is being raped in an alley, and you just shut your window and went back into your apartment and turned the sound up on the late night show you're watching.
I think a lot about Hans Christian Andersen and his, The Emperor's New Clothes. And there's a lot of that, right? I mean, otherwise reasonable townspeople standing around looking at the emperor who's stark naked, being paraded around, acting as if he's fully clothed. You can look at the weasels who convinced the emperor that he wasn't naked, and you can blame them. Or you can blame the emperor for being so vainglorious and having such little spine, he allowed himself to be carried around naked. But you really do have to look around at the townspeople too and say, what are you doing? Why are you all nodding in quiet agreement that this naked dude has great clothes? It took a kid. It took an 8-year-old kid to go, hey, that dude's naked. You know, I wrote something the other day and I didn't publish it because, I don't need any more trouble. But when the whole Leah Thomas thing came out, I had a friend who has a kid, like a 6-year-old kid.
The swimmer, transgender swimmer. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. There was a photo of her standing, receiving her medals, wearing a one piece. And it was clear, I mean, never mind her height and her wingspan and all the other, obvious traits one might associate with a genetic male. She had a penis, Adam. You could see it.
Mm-hmm.
You could see it.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Right, so this is you can see it. So like millions of people are standing and looking at this woman. And it took my friend's 6-year-old to literally say, Mommy, that lady has a penis.
Yeah. Well, the emperor's new penis.
So now it's awkward, right? Now, wait, gosh, that's embarrassing. But why is it embarrassing? Should he have said it? Shouldn't he have said it? What's the parental object lesson in this whole thing? The townspeople are nodding, and out of the mouths of babes comes the most obvious thing in the world. And now, Matt Walsh has his movie out. If you haven't seen it, right? What is a Woman? You'll see it. It's going to break some eggs. It's going to upset a lot of people.
Yes.
But honestly,
I'm with you in the metaphor that it's the townspeople, not the emperor, not even the kid, and not even the lackeys that are in proximity of the emperor. It's the townspeople. Yeah. That's who, as someone who lives in the town, I'm worried about the townspeople. I'm not worried. COVID, it wasn't Biden, it wasn't Trump, it wasn't Fauci that worried me. It was the guy you passed in the street jogging on the horse trail who yelled at you to put a mask on. That's the guy who worried me, not the people setting bad policy. Let me give a plug here, Mike. Dirty Jobs. It airs on the Discovery Channel. Season 10 is shooting now, but you can go out and find it. And you should find his podcast, too, The Way I Heard It, which is, well, you just heard Mike Rowe, so you should hear his podcast as well. And then How America Works on Fox Business as well. You shoot him, go to his Instagram page, at Mike Rowe as well. Mike, it's always the fastest hour of my day speaking to you, and you're always a joy to speak to, and I'll be happy to come back in any capacity you'd like on any project you'd like as well.
I want you in every capacity, Adam. I want you on all the shows I'm working on. It's much simpler when you're in my life. All of them.
Capacities. The great Mike Rowe. You can go to AdamCarolla.com for all the live shows coming to Denver, June 24th and 25th at the Comedy Works South, and then everywhere. So just go to AdamCarolla.com for all that. And until next time, this is Adam Carolla for Mike Rowe saying mahalo. Now, I was, just a few years earlier at the supermarket while my mom was arguing with the person about buying cat food with food stamps, and they were telling you can't buy cat food with your food stamps. And so that's how I was calibrated. Sure. I wasn't calibrated for the just supermarket sweepstakes. But